Is there a difference between natural ability and a learnt skill? Yes, definitely, right? But does it actually matter? And I think it does matter in a lot of cases, specifically for employment or work related things, because if you have a learned skill rather than a natural ability, you are less likely to be able to pivot on a dime. So unique scenarios come up, you're not really sure how to deal with it. But that can be said of both sides of this equation. But when you combine them together with natural ability and learned skill, that gives a layer of context so much deeper that you can tackle new obstacles that you haven't seen before with a much higher level of accuracy and likelihood of outcome at the end of that. And so if you ask someone to explain something to you, and let's imagine this person is just naturally very good at whatever this thing is. So let's imagine you're doing a sales training, for example, and you're saying, cool, you are very good at interacting with people and building rapport. How do you go about doing that? They will tend to give you specific case studies or ask for examples. Who am I speaking with? How old are they? What are they talking about? And they are very good on the fly. If you give them some game tape of someone and be like, right, what would you say to that? They'll give you an answer that's really, really good. But they won't give you a framework that they use. They won't give you a generic case that works in every scenario, even though they likely could do it themselves. And it's because they've never had to think about it that way. And that's what learned skill generally gives you, because someone who is naturally good at something has distilled their information down to be able to teach it to someone else for them to learn it. And combining these two things is super, super powerful. And this is where you end up with frameworks like the AAA framework, or if you want to set goals, the SMARTer framework of setting goals, and all this sort of stuff. And it's really, really interesting to look at, especially if you are someone who teaches people things. You will likely have to come up with different ways of explaining it based on the level of the person. The more naturally talented someone is, the less explanation they will need. So as an example, I was showing my niece how to do a cartwheel, which for most children at that age, me included, is really simple. You just, I'll demonstrate, you do it, and then they do it, generally. And now she could do it 90% of the way there, but there was one issue she was having where she was landing on 2 feet. Now for it to be a cartwheel, you've got to land 1 foot at a time. And she didn't have the context to understand 1 foot at a time, or at least to put it into practice. And so what we did was develop a load of really bizarre drills and breaking it down into a step-by-step feature where she could do 1 step and then the other. And so what I did literally was like, right, jump across, left foot forward, land on just 1 leg, and then spin backwards with the right leg and do a 180. And we practiced this, and she eventually got that, and she understood, oh, I understand now, 1 leg and then the other. And then we practiced some cartwheels, and she actually managed to do it. Now, she hasn't managed to learn it fully every time, but she did 1 or 2 that were actually correct. And so you have to break these things down to help people to transfer the skill and the knowledge. So if you want to test someone, and I do this when hiring for salespeople, ask them to give you frameworks under which or essentially like decision trees or flow diagrams, where they can then come up with an idea to have the outcome you're looking for across all of the cases you see. If they can do that, they likely really understand what it is they're doing, how people respond, and why it happens. And if they can't, they might be very skillful themselves, but I guarantee they won't be able to teach it. So if they're in a managerial position where they're in charge of training people, probably not the smartest place to be, but they might be your biggest killers out on the field. There we go. Hopefully that helps. Have a great day. Peace.